Continuing on with my year's Star Wars reviews, we're going to be looking at one of the most controversial entries in the Star Wars saga, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now, before I get started with this review, yes, this movie is extremely controversial. People either love this movie or think it's okay with some problems, or absolutely hate it. And I have never seen a film that is so passionately hated by people as this film. Like, this divided the Star Wars fandom like no other movie has done before in any type of fandom ever. And it's honestly kind of sad. Now, I am one of those people that will defend this movie until the day I die. I really do enjoy this film a lot, and even I, who love this film and think it's one of my favorite Star Wars films, cannot deny that it does have its share of problems, as most movies do, as all the movies in the Star Wars saga I honestly do not think are flawless, but this movie does have some problems, and I want to state that right out of the gate. I want to tell you that I do have problems with this film, but there are also things in this film I absolutely love, and I just wanted to give this statement before the reviews really started, because I know there are people that are passionately hateful about this movie and are going to go into the comments section and tell me that I am wrong about everything. I have seen this across boards everywhere, on YouTube, on the internet, everywhere. People just saying that people are wrong for liking this movie, and I will go into more detail after the review. But anyway, let's get started. Star Wars The Last Jedi came out in 2017 and was directed and written by Rian Johnson, and follows the events right after The Force Awakens, and really delved into something that I thought was really interesting. Delving more into the mythology, slowing down, and taking its time, which I think a sequel really needs to have. And that's something that Rian Johnson really understood. He said that the middle chapter is the point in which you can slow down and really delve into the characters. And I think that's why I love the characters more in this film than I ever did in The Force Awakens. Now, I love the characters in The Force Awakens. I love Rey. I've grown to love Poe and Finn. But I will say that in terms of The Force Awakens, I really didn't love Finn until this movie, until it gave me a true reason to love him, until it gave some meat to the role. And I think Rian Johnson did a really good job of giving something to Finn that he didn't have in the first film. Now, in the first film, he is really good. I really love the character. I love the idea of this stormtrooper that has turned into a resistance fighter. I think that's really interesting. But really, he is so selfish in that first movie and is really out for himself as well as Rey. And this movie turns him into a full-blown hero, and it shows throughout this journey that there is more than just him and Rey in the galaxy. There is a galaxy full of people that need help, and it turns him into a resistance fighter and hero by the end of the film, which I really did enjoy. And also, I love the depth that Poe was given in this film, whereas Poe was just kind of this afterthought in the very first film, and here he is a full-fledged character that makes mistakes, some terrible mistakes that lead to terrible consequences, and he has to deal with that. There's a lot of baggage with him in this film, and in fact, there's a lot of baggage with the characters in this film, and something that I love about this film is its theme of failure. Everybody in this film fails at one point or another. Even one of our favorite beloved characters, Luke Skywalker, cannot escape failure. And that's something that this movie delves into, which I found really interesting, because we are all human. We all fail. And even Luke Skywalker, the paragon of goodness, even he failed a little. And some people will say that this completely destroys his character, and I feel like it brings something something different to his character. It makes him feel real and human. It's like Jesus being tempted, and I really, really enjoyed that and really thought it brought a lot of depth to his character. Instead of just being the paragon of sunshine and goodness, he is a broken character that has failed and lost his way and just shunned himself from the world. But as the film progresses, we see that he has grown. He figures out what he needs to do with a great scene between him and Master Yoda that is a really great scene, and I love that they used a puppet again in the film. It's really great having Frank Oz in these films again, especially with that puppet, and it's a very powerful scene and really plays into the theme of the movie, really establishing it. And I love how this film does things that we're not expecting. Many people will say that it is just trying to do this stuff to really get a cheap thrill out of everybody by doing something that we didn't expect. And I think it is cleverly done. I think it's a lot of fun. I think Snoke being kind of, dead in the middle of the film, I think is very clever. Honestly, it kind of works for me because I'm not a huge Snoke fan to begin with, and I think it started something that was really interesting by making Snoke disappear so that Kylo Ren can really be front and center, except for what they're doing in The Rise of Skywalker, which completely contradicts this, but still I thought it was a great setup nonetheless and was really solid and something to really grow from, and also something I love Kylo Ren in this film. I loved him in the first film. I really, really did. I loved some of the conflict they had with him, but I love his struggles in this film in particular and how he is just a shadow of what he wants to be. He is trying to be Darth Vader, but he can't be Darth Vader, as something I mentioned in the review for The Force Awakens, and I love his relationship with Snoke and how just he feels like a little boy that is being bullied, and I really do like that, and I love his connection between him and Rey. I love the fight scene with them in the throne room. I think it's one of my favorite fight scenes ever. And I see people on the internet complaining about this scene, talking about how the choreography for the scene is absolutely terrible. And people go into detail about it, saying like why it's terrible and why this is a terrible fight scene and that therefore makes this scene terrible. And I'm just like, movies aren't meant to be slowed down to watch every little detail that happens. They are meant to be seen, in sequential order, in, 24 frames per second. And I just don't see the complaint in it. I think it's a wonderfully done fight scene that is a lot of fun, it's creative, and it's beautifully shot too. And this film is beautiful. It is probably the second best looking Star Wars film to date, because I think Rogue One still wins out for best cinematography. I love the look of that film, even though I didn't like the movie. But I think the film here looks absolutely beautiful. I love just a lot of shots of the ships. I love the cinematography with the fight scenes. I love just the scope of this world. And this movie is so large and so confined as well. And that's something I do want to bring up in my negatives. This film is massive. It is one of the largest Star Wars films ever made in terms of scope and also runtime, but it is also very small in scale as well, especially when it comes to kind of like how long this movie really is. And I'm talking about like the in-universe days in this film. It really feels like so little time has passed in this film and so much happens. And I feel like this would have helped the film if it had spread itself out a little bit more and not have just been like a 2.5-hour chase sequence, which I do really enjoy this chase sequence. I think it is a clever idea, a really cool idea, but I don't think it is implemented as well, because we get things like Canto Bight, which I know a lot of people complain about, and I like Canto Bight on its own. I think it's a really creative diversion. I love the look of that world. I think it's something that's really interesting. However, it just feels so out of place when it comes to the rest of the film. It really feels like Rian Johnson wanted to go to other worlds, but he also wanted to be with this, starship and, this big, like, chase scene. And they don't really flow that well. And it makes the film feel, well, grand and also very small. And also, I think a problem with this film comes in the fact that it has to follow up after The Force Awakens, which ended on a sort of cliffhanger. And so we have to start the film right where the movie ended. And that there's very little in between those two movies that happens. And so it really does feel like a direct sequel to The Force Awakens than most other Star Wars movies like Attack of the Clones and The Empire Strikes Back, which is really interesting. And what was really interesting too, this is kind of a positive, so I'm flipping back from my negatives to my positives, but something I found really interesting upon like rewatching this several times is the fact that this film is almost like the opening crawl of The Empire Strikes Back. Because if you read the crawl for The Empire Strikes Back, they defeat the Empire with the Death Star, they blow it up, and then the Empire finds their base, and then the rebels escape to Hoth and have a big battle. And that is The Empire Strikes Back title crawl. And here in this film, that's the entire movie. And I thought that was really kind of fun. It was a clever callback to The Empire Strikes Back, and it didn't have to, do something that The Empire Strikes Back did, even though this has a lot of homages and different details from The Empire Strikes Back as well as Return of the Jedi. It still feels like its own movie. And honestly, this movie feels like what I wanted from The Force Awakens. I wanted something that delved deep into my soul, made me ask questions, made me think different, and just changed what I thought a Star Wars film could be. And that's what this film does. And I think it does it expertly. And that's not to say it doesn't have its problems. As I said, I already gave several of my problems, but also I feel like this film is a bit too long. I think you could have shaved a couple minutes from this film and it didn't have to be 2.5 hours. It especially feels long, especially in the middle of the film when there is so much going on that I think could have been cut just down a little bit, and it would have helped the film overall in terms of its pacing. This movie's pacing is not perfect, but then again, none of the Star Wars movies are very perfect in terms of their pacing. I think the best in terms of its pacing is probably Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Every other film has some slowdown in the middle of the film that feels a bit too slow at times, and this film does as well. Hey guys, sorry for the random location change, but I actually am filming this after I already filmed the review. I forgot to film this and forgot to even talk about it, but it has to do with my negatives, and it's actually the biggest negative I have with the film. And yeah, I can't believe I didn't talk about this initially. I just forgot about it. But my biggest problem with this film is the comedy. And I know a lot of people have had a problem with the comedy as well, and I don't think the comedy is that good at all in this film. And it's kind of something that was a carryover from The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens kind of had this comedy that I really didn't find that funny as well. And it's kind of here. It's just Rian Johnson is kind of continuing what was done in The Force Awakens, and it's just it culminates here and is not that good. And luckily there is some stuff that was in the deleted scenes that were meant for comedic purposes that are some of the worst bits of the comedy in the film, Luckily, they were cut. But yeah, overall, not a big fan of the comedy at all and how it is used throughout the film. But overall, guys, I still think this is a fantastic film. I love what it does. I love its themes. I love how it deals with those themes. I love how it develops the characters, turns them on their head, and does something completely different with them. I mean, different doesn't always mean bad, and it's really something cool to see somebody that is willing to take chances with a property that people feel like they own. And that's something I do want to get into. Now we're kind of done with the review, and I just want to talk about the state of the Star Wars community overall. And this is going to be really annoying for some people that probably hate this film. They're probably going to be like, oh, I've heard this all before, and probably bash me for what I have to say. But I hate the Star Wars community, and I'm part of it. And I love this movie, and you know what? We are allowed to watch movies and love them, even if they're not the best, even if, they're bad. We're allowed to have opinions, and people should be able to accept those opinions. Like, I know some people that don't like this movie. Some of their reasons are pretty out there, pretty stupid, but I respect that they don't like it, and I understand why they don't like it, and I don't try to get into a fight with them. But then there are those that just feel like they are better for not liking this film, or feel better by bashing people who like this film, or any film in general, and that's just annoying. Like, I have a friend, I'm not going to mention his name because he is a really good friend of mine, but he said something that really got under my skin one time about Star Wars, and that was that I don't have a problem that people like The Last Jedi as long as they understand that it's a bad movie. What? That is... I can't even understand that comment. It is insane, because if people love something, they're going to love it. They're not going to say it's bad. Like, I have problems with this film. People say they have problems with this film. People state their reasons why it's bad, and sometimes I might agree with them to an extent. Sometimes I think they're maybe just blowing hot air, but I think that's just idiotic. I think if you love a film, you should love a film and not be afraid to love something. And I'm not afraid to say that I love The Last Jedi. I think it is one of my favorite Star Wars films. I think it does a lot of stuff right. It has some mess ups along the way, but I think it is still something that is really different and just a lot of fun. It is something that just feels fresh and new that we weren't getting. It very much calls back to something that Lucas was doing in the prequels, and people bash the prequels for doing weird stuff, but I do recognize that Lucas was doing something different, and that's what Rian Johnson is doing here. He is doing something different, and I commend him for it, and I think people should not be so harsh on the filmmaker or Lucasfilm or Disney or anybody in the making of this film. People are crazy for saying this is one of the worst films they have ever seen. Like, have you ever seen a bad movie? Like, a really bad movie? Like, I've seen terrible, terrible movies, like The Hottie and the Naughty, The Cat in the Hat, and just The Master of Disguise, and you're going to tell me that this movie might possibly be on the same level? I just don't understand it, guys, and I don't think I ever will. So anyway, that's my big rant. That's what I want to say. If you do not like this movie, I hate it that you didn't love this movie, because I think this is really something good, and it's not perfect, but I think it is something good. But if you don't like it, I understand. I respect your opinion, and just don't be bashing people that like this film. don't be saying that people are stupid for liking this film, or they don't know what cinema is, or they don't know what a good movie is, because everybody has their own opinion. And that's what's so great about film. So anyway, with all that said, I'm going to give Star Wars The Last Jedi an 8 out of 10. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. Sorry this ran a little bit long, but I did want to talk about the state of the Star Wars community and just this movie as well, and I wanted to fit it all into one video, so this is going to be extremely long, and I hope you went with it all the way to the end. I hope you guys can respect my opinion, whether you agree with me or not, but I just want to say that I love this film, and you don't have to love this film, and it's alright if you don't. Just don't bash people that do. And also, in the comments section below, if you do have a different opinion of this film, tell me. But don't be saying that you're wrong for liking this film. Just be smart about what you say on the internet. I know YouTube is a crazy place where people can say whatever they want, but let's just respect each other's opinions. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for you. I hope you enjoyed this review, and we're near the end of the line, guys. We are almost to The Rise of Skywalker. I can't wait for the film. I can't wait to see how it ends, and I can't wait. I just can't wait, guys. I love Star Wars, and this has been a lot of fun. I was really scared about doing this review because of, there's people on the internet that are going to just, trash me for this if they see my review. And there's going to be people that, of course, will be like, yes, you speak the truth, I guess. But I'm not a master of cinema. I'm not a real reviewer. I'm just a guy that loves movies and loves talking about them and wants to be a filmmaker one day. And I mean, that's all. But anyway, guys, check back next month. I'm going to do a re-review of Solo, A Star Wars Story to give my updated thoughts on that movie so that I can continue on with what I'm doing with these Star Wars reviews. So anyway, look forward to that. Look forward to more reviews to come. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next review.